the Bloop. May 1997. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, something made a sound so loud it could be heard 3,000 miles away. That's like dropping a rock in California and watching the ripples reach Hawaii. The sound lasted 1 minute, rose in pitch like a massive bloop, and had scientists absolutely losing their minds. This wasn't some random noise. The US had underwater listening posts left over from the Cold War, originally built to track Soviet submarines, and they picked up this sound across multiple stations simultaneously. The frequency profile looked organic, like it came from a living creature. But here's the problem. If this was an animal making noise, it would have to be absolutely massive, bigger than any whale that's ever lived. The internet went absolutely wild. Forums exploded with theories about giant sea monsters, and Lovecraft fans pointed out that the Bloop's coordinates were uncomfortably close to the fictional location of Cthulhu's underwater city. Coincidence? Probably. Terrifying coincidence? Absolutely. Marine biologists were baffled. They tried matching it against every known underwater sound: whales, earthquakes, volcanoes, ships breaking apart. Nothing fit. If the Bloop really came from a creature, scientists calculated it would have to be the size of multiple city blocks. We're talking about something that would make Godzilla look like a house cat. For 8 years, the Bloop remained one of the ocean's greatest mysteries. Then, in 2005 NOAA, scientists figured it out, and the answer was somehow both disappointing and terrifying. It wasn't a sea monster, it was ice. Specifically, a massive chunk of Antarctic ice shelf, potentially the size of a small country, breaking off and crashing into the ocean. When you realize the scale involved, it's actually more unsettling than any monster. The Bloop was essentially the sound of climate change. The planet itself screaming as massive ice formations destabilized due to warming ocean temperatures. The sound traveled thousands of miles underwater, which is why it seemed to come from the middle of nowhere. So the Bloop wasn't Cthulhu waking up, it was Antarctica falling apart, one massive chunk at a time. The ocean's greatest mystery turned out to be our planet's early warning system. But don't worry, there are plenty of other things lurking in Antarctic waters that are actually alive and actually terrifying. Colossal Squid. For centuries, sailors in Antarctic waters told stories that sounded like complete bullshit. Tentacled monsters the size of subway cars with hooks that could rip through ship hulls and eyes bigger than dinner plates. Most people figured these were just drunk sailors getting creative. Here's the thing, they weren't entirely wrong. The stories were consistent across different crews and decades. Massive tentacles thick as tree trunks breaking the surface, covered in rotating hooks. Some claimed direct attacks, tentacles grabbing ships, trying to drag them under. Scientists dismissed it all as exaggerated encounters with known giant squids or outright fabrication. Then, in 1925, British researchers found weird tentacle fragments in a sperm whale's stomach. These weren't just big. They had bizarre rotating hooks instead of normal suction cups. Scientists assigned it the name Mesonicoteutheus hamiltoni based on these scraps, but it remained a ghost species. Scientifically recognized, never actually seen. Fast forward to 2003, a fishing boat in Antarctic waters hauled up something that made everyone's jaw drop. A complete colossal squid specimen, frozen and intact. This wasn't fragments or blurry photos. This was the whole damn thing. And it was absolutely massive. The specimen was just a juvenile, already over 15 feet long. Scientists realized they were looking at something that could grow to 45 to 50 feet as an adult, longer than a school bus. But here's where it gets nightmare-inducing. Those hooks the sailors described, they're real, and they're worse than anyone imagined. They rotate 360 degrees like tiny meat grinders attached to tentacles stronger than steel cables. Once this thing grabs you, you're not getting away. The eyes are legitimately the stuff of horror movies. Dinner plate size, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, perfectly adapted for spotting prey in the pitch black depths 6,000 feet down. Imagine something the size of a bus with the eyes bigger than your head staring at you from the darkness. But here's the twist. Unlike the legends, colossal squid aren't ship-attacking monsters. They're ambush predators hanging out in the deep ocean, waiting for prey to come within range. Those dramatic tentacle battles sailors described, probably encounters with sick or dying specimens thrashing at the surface. The real battles happen thousands of feet underwater between colossal squid and sperm whales, the only predators capable of taking them on. we've found sperm whales covered in circular scars from squid hooks. It's like kaiju battles happening in complete darkness, invisible to us. Here's the frustrating part. We found maybe a dozen specimens total, most dead when discovered. We've never seen one alive in its natural habitat. Everything we know comes from examining corpses. There could be thousands of these things living in Antarctic waters right now, and we'd have no idea. So the sailors were right. There really are bus-sized tentacled monsters in Antarctic waters. They're just weirder and more elusive than any legend imagined. Ningen. If Antarctica has a mascot in the world of cryptids, it's the Ningen. Picture this.
Ahoy!
You're on a Japanese whaling ship in the 1990s. It's the middle of the night in the freezing Southern Ocean, and something pale and massive glides just under the surface.
Oh my god!
Your brain tries to make sense of it, but it looks uncomfortably human. Japanese crews started calling these things Ningen. Ningen! Literally meaning human, because of their disturbing humanoid appearance. We're talking 60 to 90 feet long, completely white, with what witnesses described as arms, legs, and even facial features. Imagine someone took a human and hit them with a growth ray, then dumped them in the Antarctic Ocean. The story stayed local until the early 2000s when Japanese internet forums exploded with Ningen posts. This was peak early internet culture. Mysterious stories could spread globally within hours. People shared sketches, alleged photographs, and increasingly elaborate witness accounts. The most famous evidence is a photograph allegedly from a research vessel showing a massive pale humanoid partially submerged in dark water. At first glance, it's genuinely unsettling. You can kind of make out what might be a head, torso, maybe arms, but when digital forensics experts analyzed it, the consensus was clear. Either manipulated or something completely mundane, shot under weird conditions. Believers started hunting through Google Earth satellite images, pointing to large white shapes under Antarctic ice as potential Ningen sightings. The internet didn't just spread the myth, it actively improved it, adding details like fingers, facial expressions, and behavioral patterns that weren't in the original stories. Here's the problem. Antarctica's waters are incredibly well documented. If 90-foot humanoid creatures were swimming around, marine biologists who've spent decades studying these waters would have noticed. We've cataloged everything from tiny krill to colossal squid, but nothing resembling a giant sea person. So what were those Japanese sailors actually seeing? Most likely whales viewed from unusual angles under terrible conditions. Night shifts, brutal weather, exhaustion, and endless dark water. Your brain is primed to turn any weird shape into something familiar. It's called pareidolia, the same reason you see faces in clouds. More likely culprits are ice formations carved into organic shapes by ocean currents. Get the right lighting and angle, and suddenly your chunk of ice looks like it has arms and legs. The Ningen also fits perfectly into Japanese folklore traditions of mysterious sea creatures and spirits called yokai. It's essentially a modern internet age evolution of ancient stories, adapted for viral sharing in global audiences. While the waters around Antarctica hold plenty of real mysteries, the Ningen appears to be a product of misidentification, cultural storytelling, and early internet culture. So here's the deal. If you made it this far, you're clearly into the weird side of science and mystery. Subscribe and hit that bell because I've got a whole list of cryptids, urban legends, and internet mysteries that need the same treatment we just gave Antarctica.